All right, so this video we're going to talk about how do we create a projectile in Scratch. And so what we are going to do is we are going to create a new project, and we're going to call this our projectile nodes. And this is what we have done many times when we start our projects. All right, so we got a project. So we're going to start it off. We're going to call this, we always name our projects what we want. So we're going to call this projectile. Projectile notes. There it is. All right. So I'm going to keep Scratchcat just to make it nice and easy. So we've got Scratchcat. We'll talk about go into a couple of things here. So one of the first things we want to do is I want to make it so that my cat moves. So just kind of a refresher for us. We're going to add some movement. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to do when, and I'm going to do the WASD keys. And you can choose anything you want, but I'm going to add in here. So when the W key is pushed, that's going to be my up key. So I'm going to change my Y value because remember our Y values go up and down, positive to the top, negative to the bottom. X values positive to the right, negative to the left. So my up, I want to change my Y by bigger the number, faster you go. I'm going to go 5. I think that'll work. Then I'm going to right click on this, duplicate this. I'm going to go down using my S key. So I'm just going to make this a negative value. So my positive value, chest it out. W goes up, S goes down. There it is. I've got it. Now I'm going to do my left and right. So I'm going to duplicate this again. We'll duplicate this one more time. There's my 4 movements. So then I'm going to do my A key. So my A is going to be to the left. I don't want to change my Y value though for my A. I'm going to change my X value. And I'm going to go -5 because my left is negative. And then my D key is going to be my right value. So I'm going to change my X by +5. So now when I go around, there it is. My sprite moves and does what he needs to do. One of the things that we've done, and we've always done up to this point, is we put kind of our instructions. We still need to, every time you turn a project in, you still need to give me very clear instructions. What's your game about? What's the objective? What is the cat trying to do, or the dog, or the mouse, or whatever it is that you're trying to do? But one thing that we can do is we can incorporate our tutorials or how to play in the game itself. And so super easy way to do that. And I'm just going to add this in. When the green flag is clicked, I'm going to have my character give some dialogue of how to play the game. So I'm just going to, and I'm not going to do all of them. I'm just going to do one to show you. So I'm going to go to the looks. I'm going to have him say real fast, to move up, press the W key. All right, and so there it is. So now when I hit the start flag, my character tells me to move up, press the W key. So I could just chain together and put in additional whatever things that I want. I can put in here, then I could say, I'm going to get that darn mouse. Maybe that's your game idea or whatever it is, right? So we're going to say it, move up, press the W key. I'm going to get that darn mouse, right? So that's what the cat is up to. So my game is, so I can even give my instructions on how to play, or I need 10 points to win, or don't let the rocks hit you, or whatever it is you want. Lots of creative ways that we can set our stuff up. I digress. This tutorial we're talking about projectiles. So we're going to create a projectile. Now we can add lots of things into our projectiles, and remember what we don't make. Our projectiles are never bullets. We can make lasers, we can make snowballs, we can make fireballs, ice balls, but school projects we do not make any kind of bullets, right? That's just not something that we do for school. So what we're going to do is I'm going to paint and I'm going to make myself a little laser. Now what's super important is you notice in the center of this sprite, there's that origin point, this square right in the middle. What you want to try to do is make your sprite as close to that center origin point, and it's going to make sense here in just a minute, and this could be frustrating for you if you don't. So I'm going to make a little rectangle, and I'm going to start kind of off to the left just a little bit, and I'm going to just create my laser. All right, so there's my laser. Okay, now what's important is with that laser that line that I just created, the center of the sprite is that origin point. So when I go to move and say, okay, I want to move my sprite to a certain location, it's always going to move based on this center point. If I make my laser way up here, the center point of the sprite is still down here. I'm going to have all kinds of problems trying to get my laser to do what I need it to do to go where I want it to go. So you always, when you're making your sprites, you want to start at the center of the screen as close to the center so that your sprite can be centered. Okay, so there's my laser. Now, if I don't like my laser, like my laser's a little big, I can go in here and I'm going to change the size of it. So I'll make it 40, change the size to 40. There it is. That's a pretty good size laser. Okay, so I'm going to go back to code and I'm going to rename these so I know what I've got. So I've got my laser and I've got Supercat. Supercat. There it is. I got Supercat and laser. So this is my superhero, Supercat. So now we want to code our projectile. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to have to set up and say, okay, what do we want our projectile to do? So the first thing that we're going to do is we actually aren't going to show this sprite itself. We're going to show clones of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this. So I'm going to hide it. And I am going to create a clone of this sprite. So I recommend that whenever you code within the sprite itself. So what I'm going to do is what key is it that I'm going to push to launch my lasers? I'm going to leave it right to the space key. So when the space key is pressed, I'm going to create a clone of myself. So I'm going to go in and I am going to create a clone of myself. Okay. Now what we need to do is what are we going to do when we start as a clone? So now I've got another set of code here when I start as a clone. So every time I press the space bar, I'm going to make a clone. What do I do when I start as a clone? Okay, so here are the things that we want to do. The laser is coming from the cat. So we're going to say, okay, the laser's coming from the cat. So I'm going to have it go to, and I don't want it to go to a random position. I'm going to have it go to Supercat, right? So it's going to go to Supercat. Now, because I hid it, right, it's a hidden because I hid the original, I need to show it. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, okay, I want to show my laser. So I'm going to show that clone. And then what we're going to do is we want the laser to move across the screen because it's our projectile. It's shooting away from us. So I'm going to create my forever loop, right? And I'm going to do my forever loop. And this is a very important step. And this is going to make sense just a little bit later in the video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have it move. But I'm not going to move like, yes, I want it to move along my X path here, but I don't want to change my X by +5 or change my X by -5 because we're going to control the movement by where our sprite is. So I'm going to have it move steps. Super important. We're going to have it move steps. The more steps, the faster it goes. I'm going to start out at 5 steps. Okay, so I'm going to hit the green flag. I'm going to start it. It's giving me where I'm at. So I'm going to hit the space key to test it out. And there it is. I've got a laser that is starting. Now my lasers are coming from my sprite. I got 2 things that I need to fix. One, all my lasers are stacking up at the end, right? They're not disappearing when they get to the end, so I don't want to do that. And all my lasers are coming from the mouth. And I don't want my lasers to come from the mouth. I want my lasers to come from they're eyeball lasers, like they're like heat ray or something from my eyeballs. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do a couple things. First thing, we're going to get rid of the lasers when they get off the edge. So we're going to put in our if, and remember our if is always just our conditions. If this happens, what do I want to do? And so what we're going to do is if, and I'm going to go under sensing, and this one we're going to use the touching the edge. So if touching the edge, I'm going to delete my sprite. So I'm going to go back to my control or delete that clone. So I'm going to delete this clone. Okay. So now when I push the space bar, there it is. There it is. So now they're deleting as they go. Here's a problem that you might run into. If we go back to this and if you make your projectile too big or the starting point of the projectile is too big, or you've got something where it is. When you put the if touching edge and you no longer see your laser or your projectile, then that means that your projectile is too large and is already touching the edge when it starts. So when it starts, if it's already touching the edge, it's automatically going to delete itself. So to test it, if I take this out and I push the button and my projectile works, and I put this in and I push the button and my projectile doesn't work, then that means that my sprite is too big and it's already touching the edge. So I need to reduce the size of my sprite or look at what the sprite size is. Okay, that's something that is very much going to probably happen to you. Okay, so now I've got my sprite, it's going there, but I want the lasers to come from the cat's eyeballs. And so what I'm going to do is when I push this, I know that the laser's coming right from his mouth. And this is where we kind of get into a little bit of a guessing game. So it's when we do this, it's saying when it goes to the cat, it goes to the center or the origin point of that cat, and it's the center origin point of my laser. There are a lot of factors here. If I have my laser is set way above that center part of my sprite, I have to change my numbers more. That's why when we create our sprites, we always want to make them as close to the center origin point. I could have probably even done better and put it even a little bit closer to the center origin point. But you always want it to try to be at the center of where we're working, right? So of what we're working on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the location. So I've got to go into SuperCat. And before it does anything, I'm going to change my Y. I'm going to go up 10. Let's see what that does. So I'm going to hit the green flag to start. I'm going to push my start. Okay, so I'm about to the nose. So I got to go up a little bit more. So let's go 14. All right, let's go 20. Let's see what happens at 20. Let's see what happens at 20. There you go. That looks like it's coming from his eyeballs. Maybe I want it, if I want it to come from the right eyeball, I could also change my X by, let's change the X by 10. See what that does for us. I'm going to save my project, start it. Oh, it's coming right from his nose here. So let's go change X by 20. There it is. Looks like it's coming from his eyeballs. There it is. So now I've got it lined up where I want it to be. So what I've done is I first have it go to the cat, then I change my Y value by so much. And this is great because watch what happens here. When I'm moving my mouse around and I'm shooting, it's always going to where I want it to be. Now what I don't want to do is I don't want to put my go-to down here. If I change my Y by 20 and change my X, then go to SuperCat, it defeats all that stuff. So you have to make sure that your stuff is in the correct order. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is right now, all of my bullets, if I'm moving left, if I'm moving right, all of my bullets are going to the right, or my projectiles. My projectiles are all going to the right, not bullets. So what I'm going to do is I need to set it up to say, okay, how do I get this going? So the first thing that we want to do is when I move my cat, and we've talked about this a little bit before, when he moves to the left, he's backing up. I want him to actually face to the left because these eyeball lasers need to point in the direction they're going to go to. So I'm going to go back to my cat, and we're going to do a couple of things that we're going to do. So what I'm going to do is I am going to, when I go to the left, I want him to point in direction. So when I go to the left, I want him to point in the direction, and I can choose the direction that he is going to point. Okay, so I'm going to click in here. So I want him to point the other way. So he's going to point the other way, -90. When he goes to the right, I am going to have him point to the right. Okay, so let's try this out and see what we do. So I've got it. So I go to the left. Here's the problem. So he's pointing the wrong direction, but we also have to set up, remember we've got that code to set our rotation style. So what we're going to do is under our motion, we are going to set our rotation style on the green flag. I'm going to put this at the very beginning. I'm going to set my rotation style to left-right. So what that's going to mean, and my options are, don't rotate, so he's always facing the same regardless of what direction he goes, All around is what's happening right now because he turns upside down. But now we've got it set up so when he goes to the left, he faces the left. When he goes to the right, he faces the right. Now when he goes up and down, he doesn't change, which I'm okay with, right? But he goes left, he faces left, he goes this way. Now, when I shoot my laser beam, though, you'll notice now the laser beams are coming out of the back of his head. What we have to do is get the laser beams to come out of the eyeballs, whichever direction we're going. So we're going back into our laser. And so here's what we've got. We've got it. So when he moves, he points in a direction. And we've got the rotation south set to where it is. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to point it in the direction of the cat. Now this is a little tricky. So what we're going to do, we don't want to do point towards. We're still going to do the point in direction. So I'm going to put this to point in direction. Now what we want to do is we're not going to do a value here because we want it to be based on the cat itself. So we're going to point it in the direction of the cat itself. So to do this, we're going to go to our sensing and we're going to come down, and what you are going to see is you're going to see this, and it always looks the same. It says backdrop number of stage. We're going to use this block here. We're going to bring that block in. We're going to put it right in there. Now instead of doing the stage, we're going to choose Supercat, and we're going to do what about Supercat? Point in direction of Supercat. What are we doing? We're not doing the X position, the Y position. We're going to point in the direction of Supercat. So now, when I go to shoot, if I have my lasers going to the right, turn them to the left, lasers going to the left, turn them back to the right, lasers are going where it is, right? Now here's a mistake that you might make. If you take this and I put this point in direction inside the forever block, this changes our instructions greatly. So now when I push this, it's still going in the direction, but watch, see how that happens? When I change my direction, my lasers change. Maybe you want that to be part of your game. Maybe you have one projectile or something and you have to keep moving to get it to go the direction you want. That's typically not how I would do it though. So what I would do is I would take this out and make sure that we don't want to do it in the forever block. We want to do it one time. So now I push it's in the direction. So when I change my direction, I can hit laser beams and snowballs with whatever direction that I'm pointing. Okay. Now, one other thing that we can do, and we'll talk a little bit about this with your projectiles, is you can have kind of a super projectile or different things like that. And so we talked a little bit in class about maybe Easter eggs or things like that. But what I can do here is maybe I'm going to go back here. And again, I want to make sure I tell how do I do this. So I'm going to put my say in here to shoot eye lasers, press space. Right. And so now I know how to shoot my eye lasers. But what I might want to do is maybe I want to make a situation, and we'll talk about this in class, but maybe you want a situation where I want certain things that I want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this B key. So I'm going to make this, when I push the B key, I'm in my laser again, my projectile, because I'm going to change it. Maybe with this it's big, so at a certain point I can get something. I'm going to change the size of my laser. Let's do 75. And you're going to get 3 seconds of super laser, right? 3 seconds of super laser. So then I'm going to wait my 3 seconds. And then I'm going to change the size of my super laser back by -75. Okay, so now start my game, and your super weapon could be triggered by if I touch a certain sprite, or if you think like the Super Mario games, when Mario touches the mushroom, Mario grows. Well, that's just we're changing the size of Mario. Like that's the same thing that we've got here. So I'm shooting my lasers, right? And then I trigger, I push the B key. Now my lasers, look at this. Now I've got a much bigger laser, right? So I've got a super laser, and my laser, after a certain amount of time, goes back to regular size. So you can have all kinds of secret weapons or secret tricks, or if I touch this apple, it gives me a flame fireball, or it gives me a super ice ball, or well, there are lots of cool things that you can do with your projectiles.